Joining me now to talk about it, Stephen Yates, former Deputy Assistant for National Security Affairs to Vice President Dick Cheney. Mr. Yates, always a pleasure to speak with you. Have diplomatic efforts by the United States and other nations been, in your judgment, an abject failure? And does the Obama administration have no real viable strategy?
At this point, I have to say that every toolkit in the establishment toolbox has been tried. They've gone through the UN channel. The Assad mission, I think, has accomplished almost nothing, maybe made things worse. The president famously sat down with Putin at the G8 summit and seemed to get entirely stiffed, and there was the controversy about a Russian shipment going in that direction in about similar time frame. So yes, I think that at this point, the Obama administration, a year and a half into the broader instability in the Arab Spring, does not have a real strategy to shape events.
Is there a way to force or lure Bashar al-Assad into exile, or is he convinced that he can win militarily and thus he has no intention of giving in to international demands?
I suspect it's more along the latter lines, but even if he feels somewhat fatalistic that tides have turned against him, if he looks around the region, every similarly situated dictator who has stepped down or been forced down is either dead or near death. Yeah. I just don't think that he sees anything other than a one-way ticket or a fatalistic outcome if he were to accept some kind of an offer like that.
What about supporting and arming the opposition in Syria, or is that already being done, albeit surreptitiously?
Well, courtesy of another national security leak, apparently some of the agencies of the U.S. are working with agencies of our ally Turkey to vet and support aid to the rebels in Syria. This is the direction that a lot of, I think, middle-of-the-road national security strategists have been looking at. Governor Romney and his foreign policy advisors have talked about this as being an advisable path to explore, somewhat different from what's been coming from our senior senators and also different from the Obama approach.
Senator John McCain says the United States cannot afford to be standing by watching a massacre day by day, and he is urging military airstrikes on Syria. In your judgment, is that wise or unwise?
I think it's probably net helpful to have him talking about these kinds of options. If I were in a position of having to advise the president, however, I think that there are a lot of things in the middle of the spectrum that we should be doing much more of. Our allies, like Turkey, know a heck of a lot more about who they're dealing with and have a much stronger national security interest in getting this right. I would exploit those options to the max first before having another direct U.S. military engagement.
All right, look, Russia remains, as you point out, in a central position. It, of course, has a veto in the Security Council, leverage still in Damascus, because it's continuing to supply weapons, helicopter, gunships. We know that. They deny it, but it's obvious. Is President Obama's relationship with President Putin now so distant, so strained, as we visually saw here? And here's a picture of it at the G20 summit. I mean, you could cut the air with a knife, the tension in that room. Is it so bad, that relationship, that trying to pry Moscow into intervening is just impossible?
I think there's only one thing that Vladimir Putin and his leadership will respect, and it's power. And it's not just talk. I think we've been doing too much talk and not enough action when trying to shape these events and shape the calculus of bloody players, frankly, like Russia. If we had done something to affect that shipment without talking about it, had the president go into the meeting and engage Putin from that position, we might have done more to shape their calculus. But just talk is not really going to help with a powerful player, KGB head Putin.
Stephen Yates, thank you very much, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you very much, Greg.